very interested to know how was the political context in those days when you were there. Who did you contact?
Well,
What was there? What was in Venezuela? What was going on when you got there in 1982?
in 87, the exhibition was called Apocalypse, according to, because it had all similar to these paintings. And the place, Los Espacios, became a forum for conferences on exhibition. And this time, during that period, these conferences focused a lot on political issues. Professors from the Universidad Central de Caracas, professors from various colleges, who would come and speak about the terrible discontent that was going in Venezuela. Some of them would say that we have not received our salary in 2 or 3 years. This was Venezuela. We knew that Venezuela was a rich country in oil, but to see it with so much poverty was something incredible. So my exhibition was, although we began something that we call Journey for Peace, Jornada por la Paz, that we went from Caracas to Merida, it was also a way to speak out against the terrible depression, the terrible poverty, the terrible corruption that existed in Venezuela at that time. This was a period exclusively for a small minority. Venezuela had very little participation in life. And this went on. I was going to Venezuela and showing throughout the 80s and 90s, almost every year or two, and continue this tour. And later, through Venezuela, I was able to travel to Latin America and take my work all the way to Brazil, Buenos Aires, Argentina, Ecuador, Peru, Mexico, and then to Europe, especially the Scandinavian countries. And during the first Gulf War against Iraq, I went to the Middle East. I met so many different artists, and I met many of Venezuelan great writers and poets.
How was the impact of your art in Venezuela? Do you think people felt connected with the situation, with the poverty? Like it's very strong.
This is very important. I have shown my work extensively in New York, in the Euro cities, and later in Europe, and even in Latin America. But never have I had the kind of impact and reaction that I have received in Venezuela, to a point that actually they took my work as part of Venezuelan artwork. It was like they treated me like a Venezuelan. And they have sort of adopted my work, and it had quite an impact among so many, especially the time that I brought painting of such scale, with such color, with such expression, and bringing an important theme, the theme of horrors of war, which also treats all this terrible suffering, human suffering, and it treats terrible wars in whether in Lebanon or Salvador or Nicaragua or in all these places. But as I have mentioned, that since we have conducted so many conferences, poet conferences, art critic conferences, a central focus was always the terrible, of course, the endless wars that were going on, but also the terrible situation that existed in Venezuela and Latin America, the outside interference, the deprivation of the people from reaching that kind of freedom, that kind of liberty, that kind of status, that kind of privilege to having access to health care, dental care, free this, education, and so on. And this was extremely strong. This is how they related to my mother. This was the connection. And this has become a theme, actually, in which we all have to hold to a dream, which is, I had here a series called Dream Vision, in which the artist would have this, in a great deal of my work, the first thing you would notice is that I have removed the horizon from my work to a point where the sky is almost everywhere is either on fire or something, so you're not going to see this beautiful blue sky that is so wide. I have covered it completely because of this terrible clouds that exist in our world today, this terrible oppression. And this has an important impact on the social issues that exist in this society. This is what we were talking about. That there was so much, the gap is almost unbearable when you're talking about 5% of people who have such privilege. They were completely, most of the administrations, they were so passive, because all at the same time they were so out of touch with it. There was no real close relation, involvement between, the government and the government. It was really quite a separation. It was like something really, an elitist society that has this wonderful places they have their houses somewhere in the US or some Caribbean area. And the people were just left, it's just left. They were living their own, but there's terrible deprivation.